So this past summer was my 10-year reunion at Harvard Business School. It's absolutely insane to think how fast the time has gone. And I wanted to make a video because this is basically the perfect window into how the lives of Harvard graduates is panning out. You've got hundreds of people who haven't talked much to each other, taking a break from the day-to-day grind and going up a level to reflect and catch other people up on a decade of their lives post-graduation. And people were so forthright about the challenges they faced. You might be thinking, please, what do Harvard grads have to complain about? But what they had to say was honestly really surprising. So here's the 5 unexpected lessons from Harvard graduates 10 years later. The first is imposter syndrome. Everyone, especially the highly successful, suffer from this. This is from people who run billion-dollar startups to senior execs at Fortune 500 companies. The ones that made it still say things like, I walk in every meeting thinking I don't belong, or every performance review, I think I'm gonna get fired. There's almost like a Dunbar effect where some of the smartest and most accomplished people feel this the most. The second is great expectations unfulfilled. This is one of the hardest realities to confront. You'd assume that accomplished, well-off people would live a life of luxury, but mental health struggles are rampant. And it's not about like living paycheck to paycheck, but there is tons of anxiety, depression, and feelings of inadequacy. Many Harvard grads didn't actually want to come to reunions because they were worried their lives didn't turn out as they hoped or others expected of them. And frankly, they were embarrassed. And I will point out, for as much as this sounds like first world champagne problems, embarrassment is the single strongest human emotion. And if I step back here, I think a big part of this is the expectation that going to a place like Harvard Business School instills in you. Every single class is taught through the case method, where you literally role-play yourself as a CEO of a massive company or a famous celebrity starting a business like Lady Gaga or even Mr. Beast. And of course, not every Harvard graduate can fill those giant shoes and become iconic entrepreneurs, titans of industry, or even presidents. So the harsh reality is a Harvard degree is no guarantee for anywhere near that level of success. The third is the price for success. And on that note, the other big stressor that complicates things is family. There were so many people who had gotten married and divorced, sometimes multiple times, and generally just a ton of very ambitious people who had a hard time figuring out how do you balance single-minded devotion to work with raising children and being a good spouse. There's also a ton of career angst and regret. Almost everyone secretly wonders if they made the right decisions in choosing which industry to be in, which company to work for, and which career to pursue. Business school is the last time those students are going to have this predefined path laid out in front of them. And many people struggled with the endless choices after leaving campus into the wilderness of the real world. Within that sort of lack of structure, a lot of people ended up following each other into these more common pathways like consulting or banking, and years later wondered what could have been. This is one of the biggest takeaways for me. To be fulfilled, at some point you eventually have to figure out how to define success on your terms, not somebody else's. And the most common way people have found their own personal success, even for career-minded people, has been through family and not business. Around this point in one's career, parents start to age and have health problems. And while that's a source of stress, it also forces you to start to cherish the moments that you do have. And family becomes more important than ever. And in that context, raising a family can be a huge source of joy, usually much more so than one's career. Personally, for my family, COVID was a huge turning point. My wife and I were both working with a 2-year-old child at home, and we had to both take a half day off every day. It really forced us to find that difficult balance overnight and work much more efficiently, figure out how to better prioritize, and consciously let some fires burn. And I think it's really paid off since then. Looking back 10 years, some of this may sound obvious to you, but I can assure you it's a huge transition when you look back at the starry-eyed graduates in my class 10 years ago. If you ask them how they were doing at the 1-year reunion, they talk about titles, money, and accomplishments, being in the Forbes 30 under 30. But now at the 10-year reunion, those who seem most at peace have just focused on work that's meaningful to them, not you, and what brings them joy. Disassociating yourself from the Harvard career trajectory comparisons is incredibly clarifying and freeing. When you ask these people how they're doing, they'll instead talk to you about the joy they see on their kids' faces when they went to the playground for the first time, or the nonprofit they're serving on. So for any of you stressing about that promotion, job change, or whatever, in 10 years, it won't matter nearly as much as you think now. Funny enough, Harvard Business School actually gives you a preview of some of these lessons by sharing 10-year post-graduation updates from alumni while you're still at HBS. I remember all the students who read them felt like they were a little bit depressing. A lot of divorced people, middle managers stuck at large corporations, feeling like things didn't pan out the way they thought. I now know a part of that is our own differing definitions of success rooted in career. It may look depressing to me or other students at the time, but eventually the only definition of success that matters is your own. So at the end of the day, it feels like Harvard structurally set up these fresh grads for great expectations that invariably are not met for most people. But for many, these expectations evolve into something else perhaps equally or more fulfilling. Now, this isn't to completely slam HBS and say it's just not worth going there. And in fact, in a follow-up video, I'm going to cover whether it actually makes sense or not for you, and also what I learned, so you don't have to necessarily drop 200 grand. If you're interested in that, drop a comment or subscribe to get notified when I post those videos. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time.